He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
He's here. He's here. He's not here. He's not here. He's not here today. It's Larry O'Connor. I'm here. I mean, I'm a he. I'm a he, him. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to the Mark Levin Show. Larry O'Connor with you for the next 3 hours on this, your very favorite talk radio station. What a day this has been in Washington, D.C., place I call, well, not really home, but okay, sure, it's home. It's quite a town. And great news, the temperature got a little bit above freezing, so we were able to melt a little bit more ice. Our city government here, they keep wanting to be a state. Have you heard that? Have you heard that Washington wants to be a state? They have now gotten to the point where their strategy to get rid of the frozen, locked in, they're calling it snowcrete because it is so hard. And it is like bonded to the asphalt in the streets of Washington, D.C. They were fortunate enough to get at least one lane open on most streets. Some streets, like maybe a lane and a half. There are cars that are still locked in that had parked on the curb or, on the side of the street before the snowstorm like 10 days ago. And they're still just basically, it's like the Jurassic Age. Remember the mosquitoes that they found in the amber where they got the blood to replicate and clone the dinosaurs? That was a bad idea. That's what these cars are like. They're locked into this snowcrete here. And the District of Columbia, the incredible government, one-party rule, 92% Democrat voters in the District of Columbia. They want to be a state. And their official strategy at this point is, well, let's wait till it gets warmer. It's bound to get warmer. It's bound to get above freezing, and then let nature take its course. That's pretty much where we are right now. I mean, I'm overstating it a bit. But we've had a bit of a thought. They've been able to get a little bit. They're throwing all the ice blocks that they are breaking up in the street, and they put it in giant trucks, and they move it out. They're sending it over to the footprint where the former RFK Stadium, not RFK Jr., not the guy who, eats kimchi and does push-ups at 72 years old. No, his dad, former Attorney General, Democrat. Yeah, what can I tell you? They name everything after Democrats in this town. By the way, if I could just stream of conscious for a moment, how everyone's annoyed in D.C. that Trump put his name on the Kennedy Center. It's now the Trump Kennedy Center. Most cool kids call it the TKC. I don't know why. It just makes me feel good. Yeah, he put his name on the Trump Kennedy Center. He put his name on it. You know why? Because nobody ever puts a Republican's name on anything around here. The last time a Republican got his name on anything, it was Ronald Reagan Airport, and everyone in D.C. refuses to call it Ronald Reagan Airport. They all call it DCA. Hey, you going out to DCA? It used to be the National Airport. Hardly anyone calls it National Airport anymore. They call it DCA. When I refer to it every single time, I specifically, purposely go out of my way to call it Ronald Reagan National Airport. It's Ronald Reagan Airport. That was the last time, and they fought that thing. They hated the idea of putting Ronald Reagan's name. They hated the idea of putting Ronald Reagan's name on the airport in Washington, D.C. It's not, by the way, it's complicated. It's not really in D.C. It's across the Potomac. It's in Virginia. You'll remember the Virginians who had originally agreed to parcel out, a couple of little square miles there in Alexandria, Arlington, back to Washington, D.C. to create the nation's capital. It would be shaped like a diamond, most of it from Maryland, a little bit from Virginia. And it was the thought that counts. The whole purpose of getting a little bit from Virginia was that this was a way for the southern states and northern states, to sort of commingle here and have a little bit of the district on the other side of the river. Hey, it's a long story. Go watch the musical Hamilton. They touch on parts of it. Anyway, the point is, Virginia took it back. They welched on their deal. They're like, yeah, okay, sure. We'll give you that. We'll give you this land. And then they took it back immediately. Pretty close to immediately. But where the airport is, so it's in Virginia, but it's still under the government control. So it's government land in Virginia. It's not technically D.C., but it's weird. My point is, That's not even in D.C. And there was a fight putting Ronald Reagan's name on it. There's nothing in D.C. that has a Republican's name on it. You know how bad it is? We still have to refer. There's a big bridge that cuts between Alexandria in Virginia. It goes across the Potomac to Prince George's County, Maryland. It's where the National Harbor is. It's where the CPAC conference has been for many years now. That bridge is called the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow freaking Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was such a bad president in the 20th century. Jimmy Carter looks at Woodrow Wilson and says, well, could have been worse. Joe Biden actually flexes on Woodrow Wilson. I mean, if he could form a complete sentence. Do we have to deal with the humiliation of driving over a bridge named after Woodrow Wilson? That's how bad it is in this town, where everything gets named after a Democrat. Everything. So Trump says, screw it. I'm not going to sit around and wait for them to put my name on anything. I'm just going to do it. I'm the president. I'll just do it. And they all go nuts. Which, by the way, is part of the reason why he does it. It is part of the reason why he makes us laugh and we admire him, because he knows that he's making all the right people crazy. It's Larry O'Connor here for Mark Levin. Love to hear from you as the evening goes on at 877-381-3811. But I'm not going to lie. I have so much audio to play for you. I need to give you sort of a review of what happened today. And I'm going all the way back to 9 a.m. because you probably are not going to see it. So much happened. Scott Bessent was on Capitol Hill. Incredible audio that I want to share with you from that hearing. Scott Bessent, a man in full, absolutely owned the Democrats, including gloriously Maxine Waters. President Trump sat for an interview for the Super Bowl, and that interview, portions of it have now been presented and put out. This is what the networks do, right? The Super Bowl is Sunday. NBC News sat with him. And so now they're going to trickle it out and trickle it out and trickle it out because they want to make news with it all week. And some of it is very newsworthy and it's worth listening to. But at the beginning of the day, at 9 a.m., Tom Homan, your border czar, once again took control of the stage, took control of the situation, took control of the narrative, and delivered a masterful performance, once again laying out exactly what he has been able to achieve in less than a week of taking over command of the operations in Minnesota. And you will hear from cable news, you will hear from the New York Times, you'll hear from what's left of the Washington Post, and from all the broadcast networks that, the Trump administration is in retreat, and they're retrenching, and they're changing their policy in Minneapolis, and they're in full, backtrack of all of their... But it couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, as you listen to Tom Homan today, who delivers with a velvet glove, but still hits hard with that hammer, he explains that basically the Trump administration is literally getting everything that they've wanted and what the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis has resisted up until now. But he delivered that information in such a way that it almost made it sound like he was doing Tim Walz a favor. It truly was a brilliant performance. And even more importantly, he announced what can only be described as a successful strategy and a successful operation in achieving what President Trump campaigned on and what President Trump is achieving right now in this country and even in places hostile like Minnesota, which is to apprehend criminal illegal immigrants, especially those who are set for deportation, get them in the system, and deport their butts. And Democrats don't want that to happen. It cannot be overstated that the Democrat Party, as we mentioned yesterday on this program, the Democrat Party is standing in the way of basic common sense, law and order, and insurance that our elections are safe and sound. And they're standing in the way of criminals being treated like criminals. You talk to a Democrat right now, and they say, yeah, we shouldn't have law enforcement cooperating with ICE. So I go, okay, well, let's break down what that means. Law enforcement cooperating with ICE, and I'm meaning local and state law enforcement, because, of course, ICE is law enforcement. We'll get to that, too. Democrats are now claiming on Capitol Hill that ICE is not law enforcement. It's literally in their name, ICE. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They enforce the laws related to immigration and customs. And they keep saying they're not law enforcement. They're not law enforcement. All right, so you talk to a Democrat and they say that law enforcement shouldn't be cooperating with ICE. All right, let's break that down. What does that mean exactly? Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. Oh, well, what it means is that you've got federal immigration agents for ICE. They know because, the crime databases and criminal databases, they all talk to each other, right? So when somebody is booked for suspicion of committing a crime, they've been arrested. In some cases, they've actually been tried and convicted, but even just arrested in Minneapolis, let's say, that name and whatever identifying characteristics for that person gets put into the crime database. And it, little red siren bell goes off over in the local ICE office. And they say, hey, they got one of the guys that we have a detainer for. Minneapolis police just apprehended this guy for suspicion of committing a crime, whatever. And ICE then says, oh, well, we've got a detainer on him. We want to deport him. We'll come over. We'll get him. We'll take him off your hands, and we'll deport him. And Minneapolis doesn't pick up the phone. Cops in Minnesota ignore it. They say, no, we're not going to do that. ICE is like, what are you talking about? You just arrested him. You just arrested him for indecent exposure. You just arrested him for battery and assault. You just arrested him for DUI. You just arrested him for public drunkenness. You just arrested him for shoplifting. You've got him in custody. I've already got an outstanding detainer. Immigration judges said, yeah, deport him. He shouldn't be here. Hand him over. And in 98% of the counties, I'm overstating it. In a huge percentage of the counties of the United States of America, ICE agents will come over to the jailhouse. There will be an orderly transfer. Nobody sweats. Nobody has to look over their shoulder. Nobody's blowing a whistle. Nobody's getting in front of the vehicle. Nobody's aiming a vehicle at the ICE agent. The most dangerous moment is when they exchange the handcuffs. Because, your local cop in Minneapolis, they want to keep their handcuffs. They've grown fond of them. They've got a good feel. So the ICE guy, pulls out his handcuffs. And there's a moment there where you got to transfer the handcuffs. Law enforcement will explain it. I don't know. I've never worn the badge. And then they take him into custody and they process him now as the federal criminal that he is. That's how it works. That's what Tom Homan wants. That's what the Trump administration wants. That's what any sane, rational American wants. Which, by the way, when you look at the polls, that confirms it. The majority of Americans want local law enforcement to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. The people are on the side of sanity here. And that's what they've been demanding. And Minneapolis doesn't do it. And so what has happened? Well, ICE has gone to Minneapolis to get these guys. They know they've been released because, again, they were in that database, right? And when they get released, they have to say where they're going. There's an address. So they go to the neighborhood and they try to find the guy. Or they find out that the guy works at this place, illegally, by the way. I'll keep reiterating that they broke the law. And that's what started all the drama, because you've got all these organized, paid activist groups who are now tracking ICE's activities and trying to get in the way of them doing their job because they're not doing it in an orderly way in the jailhouse. And by the way, one other thing here, real fast, before we get, because you've got to hear from Tom Homan, because you know that that's what the administration wants. It's what Homan wants. It's what DHS wants. It's what ICE wants. And here's the dirty little secret. It's what all the local police want. You think that local police officers, I don't care how woke and left-wing and Democrat-dominant the city is that your local cop works in, they did not go through the trouble of becoming a police officer, going to the academy, going through all of the garbage that they've had to go through to become a law enforcement officer, to sit there and take orders from some pin-headed politician that tells them that that guy that you just arrested for indecent exposure, for assault and battery, for spousal abuse, that person who shouldn't even been in the country in the first place, you've got to let them out on the streets rather than hand them over to your brother fellow law enforcement officer who happens to wear a different badge that says ICE instead of Minneapolis Police Department. 98% of the cops on the beat do not want to follow these policies, do not want to follow these sanctuary policies. So when we come back, we're going to expand this a little bit more, and more importantly, we're going to hear from the man himself, the border czar. He gave an incredible press conference. It was several hours ago. You're not going to see it on the news. You're going to hear it next. Larry O'Connor, Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Here's your border czar, Tom Homan, earlier today.
Look, we want to get back to the original footprint, the Minnesota footprint of what ICE officers looked like before this operation, plus the additional hires through the big, beautiful bill. A lot of these people, we got agents here from L.A., New York, and Portland. There's problems there, too. So we want to get people back to their home station and enforce immigration laws in those areas. But the vast majority of sheriffs, there's only a few that we're still in consultation with, but this is unprecedented cooperation. So again, I want to thank, the sheriffs, the governor, and the AG. I think we're in a lot better place than we've ever been in. We never had this kind of cooperation at this level, and I'm not leaving until we get all done.
Now, again, you watch Ms. Now right now. Is that what they're calling it now? Ms. Now? If you watch them, they're going to be saying, oh, Trump's in retreat. Trump's caving. Trump's backing down. What you just heard from Tom Homan is so devastating. I want to thank the sheriffs, the governor, and the AG. Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, I want to thank them for cooperating with me. Never had this kind of cooperation at this level. Unprecedented level of cooperation. And Tim Walz and Keith Ellison are like, dude, what are you doing? Don't tell people that we're cooperating with you. You're screwing us up here. All right, coming up, we're going to dive into the actual law here on these sanctuary policies, and you're going to hear from Tom Homan about how successful this has been in Minneapolis. Don't believe the hype you're hearing over there on cable. Keep it right here. It's Larry O'Connor for Mark Levin.
Liberty's voice, Mark Levin. Talk with that voice now. 877-381-3811.
Larry O'Connor in for the great one, Mark Levin, and Tom Homan gave an incredible press conference earlier today to give an update on where things stand and the cooperation he's now gotten. As you just heard him say, unprecedented cooperation from the governor and the AG. Really want to thank them. Great job. Well, what did they do exactly? Well, here's what they've done. This is, again, according to Tom Homan, this is the border czar who President Trump has put in charge. And make no mistake, I'm pushing back on the narrative that in some way Trump is caving and retreating and changing his policy and not going after illegal immigrants that are in the country and should be deported. None of that is true. I will concede, I will admit, there was a change of tone. There was a change of tactics to achieve that goal. There was a change of point person in Tom Homan to be the chief communicator of the policy, a guy who has worked for multiple presidents and has focused on border protection and immigration enforcement his entire career. Yes, that changed. Don't be confused with the new approach and a change in tone with a new policy or a retreat or change in policy. The policy remains the same. Here's Homan explaining it a bit. And you listen to this, and you tell me who caved. Because understand, the most important strategic goal of the Department of Homeland Security and the Trump administration in their operations in Minnesota, beyond just catching the bad guys, apprehending them, and putting them in the funnel to be deported, the major strategic goal in terms of policy was to compel the state of Minnesota and the cities and counties in Minnesota to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. That was the main goal. So now you listen to Tom Homan today.
Attorney General Mayor Fry and law enforcement officials about increasing coordination in a lawful way between the county jails and ICE to avoid public safety threats being released back in the community. While we had our differences, one thing was clear: we all committed to public safety for all who live in the Twin Cities. We have made significant progress under the direction of President Trump, working with state and local officials here in Minnesota, and I expect that to increase in the coming weeks. We continue to have discussions. I'll have discussions this afternoon. We currently have an unprecedented number of counties communicating with us now and allowing ICE to take custody of illegal aliens before they hit the streets. Unprecedented cooperation. And I'll say it again. This is efficient, requires only 1 or 2 officers to assume custody of a criminal alien target rather than 8 or 10 officers going into the community and arresting that public safety threat. This frees up more officers to arrest or remove criminal aliens. More officers taking custody of criminal aliens directly from the jails means less officers on the street doing criminal operations. This is smart law enforcement, not less law enforcement. It's safer for the community, safer for the officers, and safer for the alien. This coordination also makes it far more safe for the Twin Cities.
Now, does that sound like a cave? Does that sound like a retreat? Does it even sound like a change in policy? I mean, if anybody's changing policies here, it's the state of Minnesota and the local municipalities who are now cooperating, who are now allowing ICE to take custody of illegal aliens before they hit the streets, which is what they wanted in the first place. And for all the people, again, on cable news, Jake Tapper's show, Anderson, whatever his name is these days, Chris Hayes, they will probably do a segment about how this whole thing has been a disaster for Trump, that it hasn't made any impact on illegal immigration. It hasn't made an impact in the state of Minnesota. By the way, this is when we are getting crime statistics now that have blown out of the water previous years, a couple of decades worth of crime statistics, which is all, by the way, part of the immigration policy as well. But they will claim that no real difference, didn't move the needle, nothing really happening there in Minnesota. Okay, well, once again, here's your border czar, Tom Homan.
Law enforcement personnel, ICE and CBP and other partner agencies are patriots. And they've carried out their duties patriotically, with integrity, with professionalism and compassion. I've said this many times, these men and women don't hang their heart on the hook when they come to work. President Trump and I strongly stand with them in the critical work they do to prevent harmful or otherwise dangerous people from entering or remaining in this country. As part of the surge operation here, numerous criminal aliens have already been arrested. We've arrested 14 people who had homicide convictions, 139 people with sex-related offenses, 28 gang members, 139 assault convictions, 87 sex offenses, 28 gang members have been arrested, just to name a few. We're taking a lot of bad people off the street. Everybody should be grateful to that. Who in their right mind would want these dangerous criminals walking around their communities? Everyone has a constitutional right to peacefully protest. President Trump and I, we completely support that. At the same time, professional law enforcement officers should and need to be able to perform their sworn duties without being harassed, impeded, or assaulted. I want anyone to report instances of alleged misconduct or wrongdoing. There's a way to report that. The Trump administration is taking violations of 18 U.S.C. 111, which is assaulting, impeding, interfering. We're taking that seriously. If you violate the law, you will be federally prosecuted. In the past month, 158 people have been arrested for violation of 111. 85 cases have been already accepted for prosecutions. The rest remain pending. We've had 9 indictments of those who raided the church, and additional cases are being worked.
All right. So, and he goes on. This goes on for another couple of minutes, listing the number of people who have committed crimes, who are now off the streets and in the pipeline to be deported. And as I laid out the sanctuary policies right now, where Minneapolis will just, ICE calls up, hey, you got one of our guys here. He just got convicted. We'll save you the trouble of putting him in state prison. Hand him over to us. We'll deport him. We'll send him back to wherever he belongs, right? Norway or that crime-infested dystopia, Canada, right? Wherever they came into the country illegally from, where they belong if they're convicted of the crime, right? And just understand something. Your Democrat who will protect these policies, again, I'm talking about elected officials and leaders, not just some person who, has been a union member with the UAW all his life, so he votes Democrat because his former union boss told him to vote Democrat, so he votes Democrat. I'm talking about the people who hold power. I'm talking about the people who have titles. Governors, congressmen, senators, people on TV that defend them. And they defend these sanctuary policies. You say, so let me just get this straight. An illegal immigrant in this country is arrested and convicted of a crime, and you don't believe they should be deported. And they will respond, that's correct. And the local law enforcement, when they have served their time, they should be let out in the street, and ICE, even if they already have a detainer and an order for deportation, the local law enforcement should not cooperate and should not hand them over in an orderly fashion. Let me just explain something to you, because this is critically important. Because they think they're protecting these illegal immigrants by doing that, or something. I don't know what they think they're doing. Listen to me very, very carefully. This is so important. This is so important. If you take away anything that you can share on your social media pages or argue with your liberal brother-in-law at dinner this Sunday night over with these sanctuary policies, please understand something. This is the law right now, the law in this country. If you are a legal immigrant, if you went through the process of legally immigrating to this country and obtaining a green card, so you are a legal resident in the country, not a citizen. You have not gotten your citizenship. You are a green card holder. You are a resident. You can live in this country legally. You can work legally. If you are convicted of a felony, you will be deported. If you're a legal immigrant with a green card and you are convicted of a crime, you will be deported. That's the law right now. But these guys want to protect the people who aren't legal immigrants who get convicted of crimes. That's how upside down this is. And when they scream, oh, it's fascist tactic, Nazi tactics, ICE is a secret police, this is da-da-da. They could be Andy Williams from Maybury with Don Knotts as the deputy. The kindest, gentlest, warmest, most wonderful guy wearing a badge and just trying to do his job enforcing the law that you'll ever see. They could be the greatest cops, 1 out of 12. They could do everything perfectly by the book. And these Democrats would still oppose them. They would still hate the fact that they're enforcing the law. Oh, yeah, illegal immigrants, even if they're convicted of a crime, they should not be put in the pipeline for deportation. When the law states that legal immigrants are subject to deportation when they're convicted of a crime. That's how upside down this is. And if you're an illegal immigrant, all bets are off. You get yourself arrested for a crime, you're going to get deported. You don't even have to be convicted. Sorry, not sorry. At this point, I am so dumbfounded here by the protection of, and by the way, I just want to emphasize, especially the tens of millions who came in the last 4 years under Joe Biden. But honestly, this really does extend to all illegal immigrants. But let's just talk about the tens of millions who have come into the country in the last 4 years, and especially the ones who have had a run-in with the law. There is a self-deportation module right now that every single one of these people in this country, they're living in fear, they're living in the shadows. They don't have to. I don't want them living in fear. I don't want them living in the shadows either. Get right by the law. Fix it. You want amnesty? Okay, here's your amnesty. You check in. You tell them you're in the country illegally. They're going to give you a free plane ticket back to your country. They're going to. I think the offer is now up to $3,000. You get $3,000 cash in pocket. You go back to your country. No arrest, no conviction, and in fact, your record is so clean. This is your amnesty that you've been wanting. Okay, you happy? Here's your amnesty. You can go back to your country on that free plane ticket with the cash in your pocket, and then you can start the process to legally come into the country. How generous are we supposed to be? I really am vexed here by the mentality of the illegal immigrants who refuse to take that opportunity, insist on staying here, and then utilizing their power and leverage politically to get a major political party to defend them and operate on their behalf and make them the center of every political conversation in this country. The hubris, the arrogance. I'm going to come to your country illegally. I'm going to stay in your country illegally. I'm going to work in your country illegally. I'm going to get federal and state benefits while I'm here. And if you try to deport me and enforce the laws of the country that I've just come to, while breaking the laws of that country, if you insist on enforcing them, I'm going to try to burn your city down? I'm going to leverage one of your political parties to make me their cause? Bend the knee and acquiesce to my demands? All the while, the offer's on the table. Leave. We'll fly you home. We'll give you cash, and you can try to come back legally. Honestly, I truly am at a loss. What more are we supposed to do? Other than throw our laws just out the window, stick them in the shredder. Our laws don't matter. And by the way, here's the best irony of all of it. They flee countries like Honduras and Guatemala and Haiti. They come here, and if you ask them why, they say, oh, well, things are awful in our country. It's lawless. There's crime everywhere, and you can't trust the government because they don't enforce the laws. And then they come here and demand that we ignore our laws. A little bit more from Tom Homan earlier today. He really was brilliant. What he had to say about President Trump and other aspects of this issue in a moment. Larry O'Connor, Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin. We've been diving into these sanctuary policies and what's really going on in Minneapolis and how, frankly, I just see the administration. By the way, this is a success for the people in Minnesota. And Tim Walz, if he were smart, he would embrace this too and say, listen, cooler heads have prevailed. Yes, we are cooperating with these people and we're going to do that. And he can claim victory here. Fine, go ahead. Nobody believes him anyway. Here's Tom Homan today, again, at the press conference.
I've said this many times. I've worked for 6 presidents and 10 administrations. When it comes to public safety, border security, immigration enforcement, no one's done it better than President Trump. His success is unprecedented. Later.
Yeah, but they're retreating. It's a complete and full cave over there. Tom Homan's throwing trouble. It's ridiculous. Oh, also, I don't know if you saw this whole thing where they're putting up barricades to block the streets. I do love this. The protesters have put up barricades. Another word for it. Walls. Yeah, that's what it is. And then they're checking the cars before they let them through the walls, because if the car has out-of-state license plates, in other words, they're profiling. They're racially profiling the cars. You're not from around here. Show me your pay. So then they demand that they show them their papers. And they're saying that ICE is fascists, right? And so Homan talked about those barricades that are up.
As far as what I saw yesterday with the roadblocks being set up, you're not going to stop ICE. You're not going to stop Border Patrol. The only thing you're doing is irritating your community and want to go get groceries or pick the children up or whatever. I talked to the chief of police, and he committed to taking swift action on those illegal roadblocks.
And those roadblocks have now been taken down. Do not listen to these people who tell you that you're not winning. You're winning. You're winning big time. Big Lee. It's Larry O'Connor, Mark Levin.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
I'm Larry O'Connor. I'm sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin. I'm the morning radio host in the Washington, D.C. area, talk radio station WMAL. I do the morning show there from 5 to 9 a.m., and then I also do a daily live stream video show. I do it live. We do it live at noon every day for Town Hall. You know Town Hall. Townhall.com, Town Hall Media. That's Hot Air and Red State and PJ Media and all the sites you like to go to. We do that on Rumble and YouTube and Facebook and on the Town Hall sites as well. That's every day at noon. If you want the audio version, best way is to just subscribe to those podcasts on Apple, Spotify, wherever you do your podcasts, and then you won't miss me. A lot of you have subscribed after yesterday's show, and you reached out to me on social media. Let me know. I appreciate it. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. I've got some audio from the president today because they've released some excerpt from his Super Bowl interview. I want you to hear that. I also want you to hear Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary in the House of Representatives. You need to hear him with a smackdown on a lot of those Democrats, including Maxine Waters. But I also want to take your calls, 877-381-3811. And let's do that because I had a lot to say in that first hour about immigration, about sanctuary policies, about the defense of criminals that you're seeing, and the absolute dismissal of basic law and order and law enforcement principles that the Democrats are commandeering and cheering. I've got audio for you. I'm going to play it a little later of them calling. These are not the radicals who are on the streets, dressed up like Antifa little warriors. These are sitting congressmen and senators who are calling ICE paramilitary private police for Trump, Gestapo, Nazis, slave patrols. This is who they are. This is who they are. But to be clear, their policy, they say, oh, we just oppose ICE. No, they don't. They oppose the policy of enforcing immigration law. Like I said, this was Andy Williams in Mayberry, and with Don Knotts on his side, and he was enforcing the law, they'd call him a fascist. That's what this is really about. Let's start with line 4. We've got Tom in Grapevine, Texas. Tom, thanks for calling in. I'm Larry. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Hey, Larry. Great show. Great topic.
Thank you.
I'm gonna push back a little bit here and say that not only has Trump backed off, he hasn't even started. He promised mass deportation, and we haven't even had a taste of that yet. There's one very simple solution that is not being discussed here, and that is fining employers. You fine employers, you'll get rid of 10 million of them within a month. And I really think Trump needs to step it up by about 100 times to satisfy his base. His base is walking away.
His base is walking away because of his bad border and immigration policy?
That's absolutely right.
All right, so that's fine. I want to explore this with you. A couple of things that you say here. And by the way, I don't disagree, and I'm not trying to debate you. I just want to understand. And I agree with you on the employers. We should be fining. We should have absolute crackdowns on the employers. And we have seen that too, by the way. You saw ICE going after some agricultural concerns in California and raiding the employers as well, and they have been fined as well. But it should be across the board. Let me ask you a couple of things. You said if you start finding the employers, then you'll have 10 million of them out of here, I think is how you put it. Play that out for me. How do those 10 million people leave as soon as they lose their jobs?
Every kitchen I walk into in Texas hires illegals.
No, I understand that. No, I understand that. So you find the employers fire all the illegal immigrants. Tell me the next step.
Yeah.
No. What's the next step?
We fine employers for hiring them, $1,000 a day for hiring them.
No. I understand that, Tom. Don't convince me of something that I already agree with you on. What I'm saying is the employers get fined. They fire the illegal immigrants. The illegal immigrant is out of a job. They are on the street. How does that illegal immigrant then go home?
The same way they got here.
No, they don't. Because so you're telling me the only illegal immigrants in the country right now have jobs and are gainfully employed? Are you nuts?
Wait, say that again?
Are you telling me that the only illegal immigrants that are still in America right now have jobs? There are no unemployed illegal immigrants? Are you nuts? They'll still stay here. That's not going to deport them. It's just going to mean they're going to, and I'm not saying they shouldn't lose their jobs, but you still need to go through the mechanics of deporting people. Now, you said that he is not even close to satisfying what he promised with deportations. How many deportations did you expect last year?
Millions have jobs.
I know, and millions don't have jobs. So just by getting them fired doesn't deport them. We're talking about, I just want to be specific here, Tom. We're talking about the process of deporting. You physically take custody of a person. You put them into a vehicle and you send them back to their home. Right?
Okay.
Getting them fired from their job doesn't do that. You then have to take the next step. So again, let's go back for a second. You're criticizing the administration because of their terrible job deporting illegal immigrants in 2025. How many deportations were you expecting?
I'm challenging your premise and your argument here.
And I'm accepting your premise. I'm accepting your argument. So you said it wasn't enough. I'm asking you how many would have been enough?
No, you're saying that they won't go back. I'm saying they will. I'm saying millions will go back. You don't gainfully employ them. They will go back.
So why haven't the millions that are unemployed right now gone back?
Yes, some will stay. Hundreds of thousands will stay. Hundreds of thousands will return because they don't have employment.
Okay, hundreds of thousands. That's a big number. Okay, so again, Tom, answer my question, please, because the entire basis of your complaint is that Trump has been woefully inadequate in his mass deportations in his 1 year so far, and that he's losing the base because he's not deporting enough. So give me a number. How many did you want deported last year?
He was the one. He was the one that said he was going to mass deport. There's no
Tom,
mass
you
deport.
are. You know what? I'm starting to believe that you're actually a crazy left-wing liberal. Because it seems to me you should be able to answer the number. How many deportations did you want? I'm going to ask you one more time, and if you don't answer the question, we're going to have to move on.
100%. 100%. How many deportations do I want? 100%.
No. How many did you expect last year? Tom, what's the number? It wasn't going to happen in a day, so he's had a year. How many did you want him to deport?
In a year?
Yes.
I think 10 million is an easy expectation if you cut their jobs.
10 million in a year. All right, Tom. All right, man. I appreciate the call. I do. I tried. 10 million. Okay, well, we finally got to a number. By the way, some of you may agree with Tom, and that's why I wanted that to go on for a while. As frustrating as it may have been, I know it's frustrating for you to hear somebody not answer a direct question. In case you were wondering, last year we had 3 million illegal immigrants leave this country. 3 million. Would I have wanted 3 million and one? Absolutely. Would I have wanted 30 million? Absolutely. Is 3 million pretty damn good? I think so. That's a combination of self-deportations and actual forced deportations. You have to also understand that for the first 6 months, Tom, and anyone else who agrees with Tom, for the first 6 months of the administration last year, he was still dealing with the staffing levels of the Biden administration. He was still dealing with the leadership of the Biden administration. He was still dealing with judges who were trying to prevent him from carrying out and executing and adhering to federal law with regard to immigration and deportations. And he still ended up with 3 million removed from this country in calendar year 2025. And I 100% recognize that that is not nearly enough for Tom and for others. Okay, you're entitled to that opinion. And again, I would just want to be clear here. I agree that employers should not be hiring these people and exploiting them for cheap labor, and they should be fined. But I think if you think that the second people lose their job, they're just going to leave on their own, I'm sorry, you're living in fantasy land. Because as awful as it is to live in the United States of America without a job, it's about 100 times worse to live in Guatemala without a job, or in Haiti without a job, or Venezuela without a job, and frankly, about 70% of the planet. Oh, darn. I don't have a job now, but, the state of California is still going to give me food stamps and SNAP, and they're still going to give me health care, and my kids are still going to get a much better education than they would have had in Guatemala. Hell, I live in Virginia. If I live in Virginia and I don't have a job, I'll still get state tuition for my illegal immigrant kid in the state schools, thanks to Abigail Spanberger and the Democrats. There's a whole lot more going on here than people coming here to get a job and will only stay here if they have a job. And if you don't recognize that, you're not seeing the big picture. Absolutely, they should be fired and the employers should be fined. But that doesn't send them onto a bus or a plane and get them across our border. It's not quite as simple as that. There's a lot of moving parts. And frankly, I think 3 million is pretty damn good, considering we haven't deported anybody of note, at least compared to the people who are coming into the country. And that's the other thing that you have to factor in. Not only did we deport 3 million last year, but we had virtually zero illegal crossings at the same time. You got to go back decades for that kind of results. But it's fine. Tom's not happy. I get it. How about Jim in Stockton, California? Stockton knows a little bit about illegal immigration. Stockton knows a little bit about migrant farmer workers. Stockton, California. Jim, thanks for calling. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Hey, buddy, you're absolutely right. What you're saying in the argument you were trying to get across, the debate, it's 100% correct. If you don't do something on the follow-up, when you find out that somebody's working someplace illegally, you try to go in there and do a sweep to go in and catch everybody else, because when you go in there, you find 99 forms, and you know how many are illegal by doing the document checks. If you leave them on their own and take away their job, they're not going to go home. They'll just get another counterfeit document, another counterfeit setup, and go to another location and work all over again.
Jim,
it's not going to deport anybody.
Jim, are you like an immigration lawyer or something? You sound like you're pretty well versed in this.
Well, remember in 1986 when they had Immigration Reform and Control Act? I was one of the first agents that actually did Northern California employer sanctions against employers for hiring illegal aliens.
Oh, there you go.
So
all right. I'm glad you were
I
listening tonight.
I did it directly.
Yeah. That was the last amnesty where, if I remember right, it was sold to Ronald Reagan as we'll never have to do amnesty again because there will never be any more illegal immigrants because we're going to lock up the border. It'll never happen. And then, of course, the Democrats, they welched on the deal, didn't they?
Right. Well, they gave us employer sanctions in that deal. They gave us some other things, but then they had no. They really didn't enforce who
they
really
don't
was
enforce
here and who had amnesty and who didn't.
That's right. That's right. They love passing the laws, but then the second you try to enforce the laws, they start screaming fascist at you. Yeah. All right, Jim. God bless you, brother. Thank you for lending some expertise to it. We can continue this conversation if you want. If you agree with Tom in Texas, who says that Trump's losing his base because he's gone all soft and squishy on immigration and deportations. Listen, let your voice be heard, man. That's why we do what we do. Give us a call. 877-381-3811. I only ask one thing. When I ask you a simple question, just answer. It's the Mark Levin Show. I'm Larry O'Connor.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day, because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show. A little bit more from Tom Homan. It sort of addresses exactly what we were just engaged in here, this debate, conversation about whether the president does not stand by his mass immigration policies.
I keep hearing it and hearing it and hearing it. We're not surrendering the president's mission on a mass deportation operation. If you're in the country illegally, if we find you, we'll deport you. But this is about targeted enforcement operation, and that's what we're going to be doing.
That's right, and there's nothing wrong with it being a targeted enforcement operation. That's also, by the way, exactly what the president promised. Listen, if you're Trump and you're ticking off all of the lunatics, the Democrats in Congress, who are calling you, the Gestapo, and then you're ticking Representative Yasmin Asari, Congress.
This description, what you have put forward and what we've seen across this country, ICE is not law enforcement. They're also not immigration enforcement. They are literally Trump's personal paramilitary force turned against civilians, no different than many authoritarian regimes around the world.
Yeah, you're pissing off those people who are calling ICE a paramilitary private police for Donald Trump. Adelia Ramirez, Congresswoman, Democrat.
We must have accountability, and we must bring justice to every fascist in the administration, and that includes Kristi Noem, that includes Stephen Miller, and that includes Tom Homan. ICE will be abolished. DHS will be dismantled.
ICE will be abolished. DHS will be dismantled, and we'll bring accountability and justice to all the, like a Nuremberg war crime trial. So you're ticking off all of those lunatics. And meanwhile, you've got Tom in Texas over there going, you're not doing enough. You're getting all squishy. You're retreating. 3 million, that's nothing. It's like, what are you supposed to do when you're Donald Trump? It's got to be frustrating for the man. First person to secure our border in my lifetime, and he did it in like 2 months. The cleanup mess that he had to deal with after the Biden administration, the obstruction from Democrats, the obstruction from our Republicans, the obstruction from judges. It's the Mark Levin Show.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day, because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
The Constitution Man, Mark Levin. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
Larry O'Connor sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin. President Trump sat for an interview with NBC News because the Super Bowl's on NBC, which I think means you have to listen to Chris Hollingsworth. Yeah, I know. I won't be watching. I'll be on a plane during the Super Bowl, actually. I guess I could watch from the plane these days, but nah. I got some books to read. That said, he is being interviewed for the Super Bowl, as is tradition, except when it's President Joe Biden, who can't, make it through a 3-minute conversation with a dog. And NBC Nightly News has chosen their anchor, Tom Lamas. Is it Lamas or is it a Llamas? Does he pronounce the L? When I did Spanish class in high school, because I went to high school in California, it's the law. You have to take Spanish. I mean, you don't have to, but it serves you. I did 2 years of Spanish, really only paid attention to the first year. Second year, just sort of, I didn't pay attention much in school at all. Boys and girls, don't be like Uncle Larry, I promise. I got lucky. You won't. But I do remember the teacher for Spanish, my first year in high school, Spanish 1, had learned Spanish in Argentina. And apparently, not all Spanish is the same. They pronounce it differently. They all have their own thing. It's almost like how when you go to New York, they're not actually speaking English, even though they think they are. Don't even get me started on Boston. Yeah, I mean, but it goes well beyond accent. It's like actual pronunciation. So the double L in Lamas. So here in America, we would say Lamas and maybe give it an extra L, right? 2 L's. It's a superfluous L. You don't need the second one. Or maybe you don't need the first one. I'm not sure. I'd stick with the capital L. But so Tom Lamas. But then in Spanish, I think it's Llamas, which I believe means they llama. No, that would be Yaman. Llamas is, I don't remember. You. It means you llama. Llamas means you llama. But in Argentina, this is what I'm getting at. My Spanish 1 teacher at Corona del Mar High School. You talk about having to learn Spanish. You need to know Spanish just to go to high school when it's called Corona del Mar. Wow, I sounded like Ana Navarro there, didn't I? My Argentinian accented Spanish teacher would say llamas. Yeah, it's a llamas. The double L is pronounced like that. All right. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, Tom Lamas. So anyway, Tom Lamas is the NBC News guy. He interviewed President Trump. And they've released some excerpts. And a bit of the conversation, of course, centered around Minneapolis. I don't know why. Minneapolis doesn't know anything about pro football or getting to a Super Bowl. Right? Am I right? And so Tom Llamas asked him about, Tom Homan announced today that you're withdrawing 700 ICE agents there. What's that all about?
That big change on immigration, 700 officers leaving Minneapolis. Did that come from you?
Yes, it did. But it didn't come from me because I just wanted to do it. We are waiting for them to release prisoners, give us the murderers that they're holding and all of the bad people, drug dealers, all of the bad people. We allowed in our country, I say 25 million people with an open border policy for 4 years under Biden and that group, the Autopen group, I call them. We allowed to come into our country people the likes of which no country would accept. And we're getting them out. Yeah. But we've gotten a lot of them out. So crime now in Minnesota, crime now in Minneapolis is down. Crime in all cities is down. And you know why it's down? It's down because of us. It's down in Chicago by 25%, despite the fact that we are always dealing with these people, and they happen to be Democrats, that don't know anything about crime prevention.
All right, so, downsizing by 700 because, as Tom Homan announced earlier, Minnesota's not cooperating. So because so many of these transfers are going to be happening within the jailhouses in an orderly fashion, you don't need – because you know what a ton of all the ICE agents that were sent up there were doing? They were doing crowd control and mitigating the threat from the mobs on the streets because the local police weren't providing that. Furthermore, and again, this is getting a lot of attention, as well it should, because as I said before, don't pay attention, don't freak out because the president says, we need to change the tone. We need to change the narrative. We need to change the face on these policies, maybe even change some tactics, but we're not changing the policy. The policy remains the same. And so he conceded a bit in this interview. This is one of the excerpts that's getting a lot of attention.
Speaking of Minneapolis, what did you learn?
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals. But look, I've called the people. I've called the governor. I've called the mayor, spoke to them, had great conversations with them, and then I see them ranting and raving out there, literally as though a call wasn't made.
There you go. President Trump. What did you learn out of Minneapolis? Maybe a softer touch. Which, by the way, again, it's a wise man who can learn a lesson from an event. And I think that's an appropriate tone to take. But don't pay attention to the tone. Don't pay attention to today's messaging. Don't pay attention. Just pay attention to the policy. How has the policy changed? Let's go to line one. This is Carolyn in Loveland, Colorado. Hey, Carolyn. I would love to live in a place called Loveland. That must be just a charming thing every day in your life.
Well, hello, Larry. What a privilege. Wow.
It's my honor.
Anyway, I'm going to make it short and sweet because you're a busy man.
No,
and I need you, Larry, because I listen to you every day.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, what I do, you are my fact guru. Anyway, so what I want to say is we are in a 1776 moment, but I don't think America gets that. We say that, but I think it just bounces. So, Larry, being who you are, and as you have a big voice, and you're a thinker. So what I want to ask you is to please figure out a way to get to these people to realize, yes, President Trump is amazing. His administration is amazing. But we are we are still hanging by a thread, Larry. We really are. I think we're in serious trouble with these people, with all these people that came in our country. And I think they have big plans for us. And I think somehow we need to reach the people that are, actually real Democrats that are reasonable. But because they don't like President Trump, they kind of close themselves off. But somehow reach them and say, hey, we are in serious trouble here.
Yeah.
This is our 1776 moment. But people, we need to realize there's all these issues. But the main issue is if we don't unite and get together here, we're going to lose. We're going to lose this if we continue to go after President Trump, who is the only thing between us and the street.
Yeah. Well, Carolyn,
he truly is.
God bless you. And I hear the concern in your voice. I do. And it touches me. It really does, because I share a lot of your concerns. And I try to be positive, and I try to be upbeat, and I try to give people something to hang their hat on to sort of get them through the day as we see the events around us, because it's way too easy to feel like the walls are closing in. And I got to tell you, based on the people that I know that work in this White House and work in this administration, who are in positions of power, that are setting policies, they hear you too. They don't disagree with you. And I think that the numbers right now, considering the absolute atrocious media coverage of everything, let's just take Minneapolis, Carolyn. And I think my friends at Media Research Center did something like 95% negative coverage of everything that's going on in Minneapolis. And you've got headlines as like Trump's goon squads are murdering American citizens in cold blood and all that. And of course, 3 days later, we get the video and we see the facts and we know that none of that is true. And we knew none of it was true in the first place. And you look at that horrible wall-to-wall negative coverage and the lies that have been perpetrated about just about Minnesota. And yet at the same time, the polls still favor the policies. They may be negative about ICE right now. Good, if they put media out about me like that, my own children would hate me. But on enforcing the border, enforcing immigration law, and deporting illegal immigrants, he's still on the plus side with that. On things like we talked about last night with securing our elections, which is an existential issue for this country right now. If we don't secure our elections, it's over. He's got overwhelming support. So I think, Carolyn, what I'm trying to say is it is resonating with people. It is resonating. It's why they're so desperate to redistrict in California and in Maryland and in Virginia. It's why they're so desperate to do whatever they can to try to attain power this midterm. Because as desperate as it seems to you, Carolyn, that things are slipping away and we're one election away from losing it completely, let me tell you something. Democrats, if you think about it, are one or two elections away from never retaining power again. When you look at where people are moving right now, when you look at how states are going to be reapportioned, when you look at how the House of Representatives will be newly represented with the migration of people in this country going to Republican-dominated states, the way that affects the Electoral College, and, by the way, they can't nominate somebody who isn't a lunatic right now, and you look at the deep bench Republicans have at the national level, they are in a desperate state. But you never hear that narrative out there, Carolyn. The reason they're acting the way they're acting right now, the reason that they are trying to protect people in this country illegally so they can maintain their numbers in the House of Representatives through the apportionment of districts in those states, they're acting that way because they know that it's game over if these policies continue. So, Carolyn, I hear you, but I just want you to know that they are in desperate straits too. It's why they behave the way they behave. I hope that makes you feel better.
I just think they're going to ramp it up, Larry. I think they're
they
going
are.
to really ramp it up.
They absolutely are going to ramp it up.
Yeah.
And I will work counter to what many experts say, and that is I want you to not underestimate the wisdom, morality, and patriotic instincts of your average American. I know the cynic will sit behind this microphone and say, American people are low information and they're stupid and they're just watching Netflix all day and they don't know anything. And then, you know what? I have more faith, actually. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm wrong even. But would you have ever thought that Donald Trump would get elected again in 2024 in the fashion that he did? Do you think that that would have ever happened? Ever? I didn't.
Correct. And, the other thing people need to understand is, the opposition this president has been up against is just, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
People have no idea what this poor man has done.
That's
and
right.
He works tirelessly for every one of us. So, Larry, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do, and God bless you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. That means the world to me. And you're right. You're right. If you really step back and you think about it, it's amazing. Nobody's talking about the border anymore. It's like, oh, he solved that. It's almost like Trump is a victim of his own success here, in that they solved the border so seamlessly, so quietly, so quickly, so effectively. And now you've got month after month after month where you've got zero border encounters from anyone slipping past the border. Something that they said, for how many decades have we been told, you can never do that. That'll never work. There's no way to do it. And here we are. And it's and I'm talking about his base, by the way. The hardcore base who sadly I think get misdirected on certain social media platforms and podcasts, who are constantly there are certain podcast hosts out there who call themselves supporters of President Trump, but their business model relies on you thinking that everything is crumbling before your eyes. And so that's what a lot of people hear. And yet, when you look at policy after policy after policy after policy that is pulled in this country, 95% of Republicans continue to stand with the president. So who are these people talking to exactly? Who are these doomsdayers talking to? And whoever they are talking to, they're not listening. And so Carolyn is right. With everything that this president's been through and the success that he had in this first year and the headwinds that he's got and the people who are opposing him and the slimy slander and defamation and the accusations and the disgusting spectacle of lies that have been told about him and his poor wife and children, the last thing he needs is for you to walk away. He didn't need this. And now you're walking away? Now you're saying it's not good enough? Now you're saying, what have you done for me lately? We got this. Guys, we got this. Just hold tight. All right, more of your calls on this. More from the president in this interview with Tom Jamas in a moment. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin. You know, talk radio hosts, when they're live on the air and things develop, break, get handed to you, it's gold. It's beautiful. It's delightful. It's a fabulous thing. And we were just playing some releases from this exclusive interview with President Trump and Fernando Lamas. No, it's Tom, sorry. Tom Lamas at NBC News. And take a listen to this one, because I think this may inspire a conversation in our next hour. President Trump asked about Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance.
Look, J.D.'s fantastic and Marco's fantastic. Both doing a great job. And I do think this. It's a great question. I think that's your most interesting question. Yeah. I would say one is slightly more diplomatic than the other. I think they're both of very high intelligence. I mean, you know, they will do shows. They will do Joe Rogan as opposed to the opponent not doing it because they couldn't handle it. They will be able to do whatever they have to do. I think there's a difference in style. You know, you can see the style yourself, but they're both very capable. I do think the combination of J.D. and Marco would be very hard to be beaten, I think. But you never know in politics, right? They say, in the age of Trump, you never know.
Yeah, in the age of Trump, you never know. But that's the statement. You know, this is the thing that's been discussed in D.C. quite a bit. I'm sure you talk about it in your home as you look toward the future and the next presidential election. And you see these two powerhouse personalities emerging from the Trump administration. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Obviously, there are other potential nominees as well. Senator Ted Cruz is fantastic. I think Senator Josh Hawley might run. I think that Governor Ron DeSantis still has a chance to run. I think there are other Republican governors. But you've got those two right now emerging from. But by the way, I think that Sean Duffy, your transportation secretary, has a political future. Maybe not in 2028. This administration is jam-packed with great future national figures. J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. Do you agree with Donald Trump? Would that be a combination that would be very hard to beat? Do Do you like one more than the other? Give us a call.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
My name is Larry O'Connor. I'm sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin, and I need to take this moment to acknowledge, please listen, that I am broadcasting tonight's program from stolen land. I am currently occupying stolen land right now. And by the way, you are listening to this broadcast on stolen land. In fact, if you really think about it, every parcel of land on the planet has been stolen, I suppose, except for maybe the area between the Tigris and the Euphrates in Mesopotamia. I guess. What is it? Is it the Fertile Triangle? Is that what it was? I can't remember my ancient civilizations classes back in middle school. And I love the new woke narrative. Can we just acknowledge, please, that we're on stolen land? What, unlike Europe? By the way, stolen from whom? Who was the land stolen from? Oh, the Native Americans. Oh, yeah, the Native Americans. How'd they get here? Where'd they come from? You know where the Native Americans came from, right? They walked across the land bridge at the Bering Straits between Russia and Alaska and migrated down. Got out of Canada as soon as they could, because God bless those Canadians. They'd all come here if they could. And they got down here, and then they were, they were the indigenous people, but of course the indigenous people weren't really indigenous. Every single human being on the planet, their ancestors traveled and occupied land from another area of the world. Everybody knows that, right? So, okay, so who stole the land here in North America? The European colonists, right? Yeah, I beat you to it. That's right. This land right here was stolen by the European colonists. They should have stayed where they belong, on their land, in Europe. Wait a second. Hold on. How did they get to Europe? Where did they come from? I mean, this is just, constant diminishing returns on this argument. And it's meant to be a conversation stopper. It's meant to just shut you up. It's meant to the Billie Eilish thing at the Grammys, which I will not play for you. But by the way, her name is Eyelash? Really? Oh, is it Eilish? All right, same thing. Billie Eilish says, no one is illegal on stolen land, right? That was the big line. Nobody is illegal on stolen land. I think, actually, she got it wrong. Think about it for a second. Wouldn't it have been more powerful if she said no one is legal on stolen land? Right? There's no such thing as legal. If you're on stolen land, you can't, right? Am I overthinking this? Hold on.
No one is illegal on stolen land.
There you go. Oh, they loved it. No one is illegal on stolen land. I think what she means is no one is legal. So if no one is illegal, that means everyone on stolen land is legal, which I don't think is the point she's trying to make. I think what she's saying is we're all illegal. Right? Right. So she got that wrong. She's not the president of the Mensa chapter of Beverly Hills. No one is illegal on stolen land. And then, of course, it's meant to just be you can't have any position or any judgment or, in fact, have any sort of laws or rules Because ultimately, if I don't like them, I can just look at you and say, well, this is stolen land. And then it's over. Now, how do you recover from that conversation? Although it's interesting to me, if you're against having borders, then is there really such a thing as stolen land? I mean, when the settlers came here from Europe and settled North America, who's to say what was the possession of the Native Americans? Did the Native Americans even, well, this is our land. Look, here's our border. Here's the wall, right? I mean, no. They're against borders, but they're also against you occupying stolen land. But without borders, there's no definition of what land belongs to who. I don't think they think through their policies or their statements. She should stick with singing and writing lyrics. But this show is being done on stolen land. I should admit that. And I think that you should all just recognize that. By the way, it is literally stolen. I'm squatting in a house right now. I'm in Mark Levin's house. He's on vacation. He doesn't know. I've stolen Mark Levin's house. I am doing this show from Levin's stolen land. So that's the question on the table, not about stolen land. I digress. No, the question on the table has to do with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. You just heard the president say it in these excerpted clips from the interview with Tom Lamas that will run during the Super Bowl. And it was a good question, asked specifically about the difference between President Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance.
J.D. is fantastic, and Marco is fantastic.
How are they different? How are they different?
And I do think this. It's a great question. I think that's your most interesting question. Yeah. I would say one is slightly more diplomatic than the other. I think they're both of very high intelligence. I mean, you know, they will do shows. They will do Joe Rogan as opposed to the opponent not doing it because they couldn't handle it. They will be able to do whatever they have to do. I think there's a difference in style. You know, you can see the style yourself, but they're both very capable. I do think the combination of J.D. and Marco would be very hard to be beaten, I think.
All right, so do you agree with the president? If the ticket in 2028 is some combination of J.D. and Marco, or Marco and J.D., and you tell me who you prefer at the top of the ticket, I mean, it would be hard for me to think that J.D. Vance would run as a running mate and vice president again. However, he might like being vice president. And Marco Rubio is his senior. Who knows? I know everybody says, well, J.D. will be at the top of the ticket. I'm not so sure about that, actually. Just hold your fire there. He's only been in politics for what? By the time he finishes as vice president, he will have only been in politics for 6 years. 2 as a senator and 4 as vice president. I know Obama had less experience, and, well, enough said. Regardless of who is on the top of the ticket, although I would like to hear your opinion on that, do you agree that the Vance-Rubio ticket is very hard to beat? And if you can even venture a guess, who would the Democrat ticket be to square up against that ticket? 877-381-3811. Are you on board with that, or do you have another nominee that you would like? It is never too soon to talk about presidential politics. So give us a call. And while we're at it, we've got a lot of calls that are already sitting there that we want to get to with all the great topics we've talked about all evening. Roger in I love Palm Springs, California. Roger sitting in his vintage mid-century modern home with a swimming pool and palm trees. He's playing a little Rat Pack on the hi-fi. Roger, thanks for calling. Roger. And we lost Roger. Well, I built up his home in Palm Springs so beautifully. I love those. No, we got him. All right, let's go to. I'm having a coughing attack, so this is perfect timing for me to not have a call. Do we still? Roger's back. Go ahead, Roger. You're up.
Okay. I want to address the issue of the conduct of the Minneapolis Police Department.
Thank you.
Every police department in the country has an oath of office, which says that they are going to protect and serve. There is no exclusion in that. And when they violate that, particularly when there's criminal activity, you have what's technically called misprision of a felony. I think the political corruption is so severe in Minneapolis that it brought out the cowardice in the entire police department. Had they been on the scene from the very beginning, 2 people would have never died.
Yeah,
they failed to carry out Minnesota law with regard to dealing with violence in demonstrations. That law was as a result of the Floyd situation.
Yes.
So why is nobody holding them accountable? What is certainly failing to carry out their duties, and probably even more so, cowardice under fire.
Well, Roger, these are great points. And first of all, are you former law enforcement or are you an attorney? Because you sound like you're pretty well versed in this stuff.
I'm an academic that had a couple of major Department of Justice grants. I also did work for the Department of Defense.
Okay. Oh, great. Well, and thank you for doing that and aiding our country with your intelligence. Let me ask you something about, you're right, law enforcement swear an oath, and law enforcement are supposed to protect and serve, and law enforcement, if they can, are supposed to, intervene whenever they are aware that there's a dangerous or criminal situation going on. You're right. That's what cops do all the time, and they're great at it. What do you do with the chain of command in the police force when you are ordered by the police chief in the hierarchy and the elected officials who run the police department? What do you do when they say, all right, well, yeah, but you don't do this, you won't do that, stand down, we don't want you interacting with federal law enforcement? If you're just a cop on the beat, what are you supposed to do if those are your command? Because you also have to have a chain of command in a police force, don't you?
Let's take that from the very beginning. I was involved with the debrief of the killings at Hadifa for the Marine Corps. I was one of the lead facilitators for that process. And it was very clear when you have an unlawful order, as several prominent Democrats have made commercials about it, you are free to disobey. More so, you should disobey. So the fact that they didn't take a stand, that they took no action whatsoever but just hid in the corner, to me, is just unexcusable.
Roger, I agree that it's inexcusable, and I also agree. I've known enough cops who work in these jurisdictions. Around Washington, D.C., there are cities and counties that function exactly like Minneapolis with regard to their local police and their lack of involvement and cooperation with ICE. And I talk to these cops, and they hate it. Most of them leave because they hate it so much. But, you got a job. You got to do your job, and you try to make the best of the job, and you do try to serve your community, and they hate it. And I still want to believe that the majority of Minneapolis police officers hate it, and they wish that they could. Whether they can be held liable because they have obeyed the orders that they were given to stand down, I don't know, Roger. I really don't. But I'm sure that there are people listening who do. But I appreciate the call. It's a great call, and I love Palm Springs. Riley in Humboldt County, California. Humboldt County used to be famous for growing a lot of marijuana, but now that it's legal, where's the fun in that, Riley?
Sorry, say again?
I said Humboldt County used to be very famous for growing a lot of marijuana, but now that it's legal, where's the fun in that?
Oh, the fun is gone and the industry is gone.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Yeah.
Riley, what's on your mind tonight?
It was destroyed. So I want to talk about, first of all, I love the show. Listen to it at work all the time. It's very entertaining. But I wanted to talk about ICE. I feel I feel a little bit more centered on this rather than right. I think they should be upping their game in their code of conduct and their the way they do things. For example, I've heard a story locally that a gentleman was approached by ICE and detained by ICE on the scene. He was taken to an ICE detention facility, and he wasn't detained on anything other than immigration. He wasn't, assaulting anyone or anything like that. He said he was a U.S. citizen at the scene, which, from my interpretation of what I understand of the law, is that there has to be an investigation at the scene. And the reason this is a problem with me is because ICE is on the front page of everything. So I don't want people to be able to discredit ICE off of just one little mishap, and it happens every now and then. I know police have those mishaps and everything like that, but since they're on the front page, I really think they got to step up their game.
Yeah, listen, when you say up their game, there's a fine line between upping your game and being perfect, right? The fact of the matter is there may be some U.S. citizens who are detained, and then once they show their paperwork and everything is cleared up, they are released. My understanding of the numbers of U.S. citizens that have been detained compared to the number of illegal immigrants who have been actually apprehended, it's minuscule. I'll come back in a minute on this, Riley, and give you the numbers in a sec. It's Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin.
Mark Levin.
Yeah, this is a common refrain. Larry O'Connor here in for Mark Levin. It's a common misdirection and refrain that U.S. citizens are now being detained by ICE. Let me just explain something. And it is true. It is true. In some cases, U.S. citizens are being detained by ICE. U.S. citizens are detained by police all the time, too. Innocent U.S. citizens. Sometimes innocent U.S. citizens are arrested by police and then eventually released. Sometimes innocent U.S. citizens are arrested by police, indicted or arraigned for their crimes, and they go through a full trial. And then they're found to be not guilty because they are not guilty of their crime and they're released. It's how law enforcement works a lot. But I want to get to the detained thing, this whole detained. Someone is detained and they're a U.S. citizen by ICE. What that means and why that isn't some sort of black mark against ICE and a rationale for disbanding the entire thing. We'll explain in a moment.
He's driving the media mad. Mark Levin, call in with your outrage. 877-381-3811.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for the magnificent, great one, Mark Levin. Always an honor to be sitting in for that man. Thank you for tuning into the program tonight. We just had this conversation here, and a really nice guy, Riley, Humboldt County, California, called and said, listen, ICE has to step up their game. They're making us look bad. I support the policy. But some of the stuff they're doing, they're harming themselves. They're harming the narrative. Like, for instance, when they detain U.S. citizens. And I want to address this issue because this is one of those talking points you hear a lot. And I'm not saying Riley's wrong or mean-spirited or anything. I get it. Well, these federal agents are detaining U.S. citizens. They're only supposed to be going after illegal immigrants. Well, as we mentioned earlier in the program, 3 million deportations in 2025. First year, 3 million deportations. That's a good number. I think that's pretty strong. Over 2 million, by the way, were self-deportations. I think it was roughly 750,000, 800,000 were actual apprehensions by ICE agents or Border Patrol of people in the country illegally who were then sent home. All right? Pretty good stuff. ProPublica is a left-wing liberal journalistic endeavor that does studies, reports, investigative pieces. In October, almost through 2025, to be fair, not the entire year, but through October, they did a study of the documented cases where American citizens were detained by ICE agents or CBP. Do you know how many they found? And these are liberals. These are left-wingers. They were looking for the worst of the worst. They were looking to make ICE and Border Protection look bad. Do you know how many they came up with? 170. 170. when actually apprehending something like 800,000 and deporting a total of 3 million. 170 were U.S. citizens that were detained. And by the way, some of those detainments, they involved workplace raids. So you go to a workplace where you've got all these illegal immigrants, and everybody gets rounded up, and everybody gets detained, and everybody gets stopped, and everybody gets searched. And then you realize, oh, this person is a citizen, and you let that person go. That counts as one of the people detained. Okay? Traffic stops, protests, neighborhood operations. Over 50 of the cases involved citizens that were questioned about their status, with agents citing reasonable suspicion of immigration violations. Now, let me ask you something. You're smart. You get this. You know. Does a member of law enforcement, either your local city cop, county sheriff, state police, or federal law enforcement, FBI even, do they have the legal right to detain you if there is a reasonable suspicion that you are in violation of the law? You know that they do. All cops, ICE, CBP, sheriff's deputies, all cops have the legal right to detain you if there is a reasonable suspicion that you are in violation of the law. And ProPublica is looking for the most dirt they can find on this administration, and the best, they got 170. 170. Do you think that's given us a black eye? You think that that's unacceptable? You think that we need to defund and dismantle the Department of Homeland Security and ICE because of that? There's one video in particular that the left, the Democrats, media people, they love to point this out. It's one of those viral videos. It's from Minnesota. It shows Border Patrol dealing with a person who's got their smartphone up and recording everything and provoking them and poking them and getting in their face as they were in a neighborhood with an operation looking for a very specific individual, a criminal illegal alien. I'm sure you've seen this.
Yes, you are required to.
Where are you safe?
Look, sir, you're going to do this the easy way, or are we going to take you in?
You cannot take me in.
Yes,
I'm
I
in
can.
my private.
Yes, I can.
Do
you have documentation?
I do have my documentation.
Can you present it to me,
Why
please?
are you asking me for my paperwork?
Because of your accent.
I still? You have an accent too.
Where were you born, sir?
Where were you born at?
Put your hands behind your back.
All right, and it's at that moment where he gets detained. He gets arrested. He gets handcuffed. You heard the exchange. I'm sure you've seen this. I cannot believe this is America. Show me your papers, and I will detain you because you have an accent. This is Nazi Germany. I cannot believe this is allowed in America. You see how these asking for the paperwork and proof of citizenship, he has an accent too. He's Mexican-American because, you know, white supremacy, anti-Mexican Klansmen there, right? All right, so do you want to know the facts? Because I did a deep dive research on this video because it keeps getting thrown up. Oh, I can't believe I've seen the video. Citizens are being stopped and detained because of their accent. So this guy counts as one of the detained, right? There you go, U.S. citizen detained. And he's a naturalized U.S. citizen. This happened in January. It was Columbia Heights, Minnesota. His name is Ramon Manera. He's a naturalized citizen, been in the country since 2019, originally from Mexico. He was detained briefly. He was released without charges. I would like to pause for a moment here. When ICE or CBP encounters somebody that they think is potentially in violation of the law and ask for paperwork and identification, and they don't get it, and they detain somebody, that person is held until the appropriate paperwork can be revealed, and then they will be released. That's how an innocent American citizen is dealt with when they are detained by federal law enforcement working for immigration ICE or for CBP. When a similar innocent American citizen is confronted by and detained by a criminal illegal immigrant gang member from MS-13 or Trinidad, they don't have the same outcome. We've got innocent American citizens who are detained by those people too. And usually they end up dead. Maybe sexually assaulted first, then murdered. Okay, so let's put this in perspective when we're talking about U.S. citizens being detained by people that you might not like, whether it's a mask-wearing ICE agent or whether it's an MS-13 gang member hoodlum. Detentions are happening. Now, what this video shows, it's 35 seconds long, is Manera outside his garage being confronted by CBP, and you heard the exchange. What it doesn't show is what occurred right before the recording began. What it doesn't show is the professional orderly records check that followed. What it doesn't show is this guy being released once his citizenship was confirmed. And what it also doesn't show is any legal standard and basis governing this stop in the first place. The agents were in a public area during an active enforcement operation. The individuals, including Manara, began yelling at the agents in Spanish. A fluent Spanish-speaking agent identified Manara's Mexican accent because he was from Mexico too. He asked him about his birthplace, and Manara gave inconsistent answers. So the CBP agent, who knows Mexican dialects and accents, told him to show him his documentation. That's when the video begins. And when asked, well, why do I have to show you my paperwork? He said, because of your accent. In other words, your accent doesn't match what you've been telling me about where you're from. But that can't be legal in America. That's not my America, where you've got these armed, jackbooted thugs demanding to see paperwork from American citizens just because they have an accent. My grandfather had an accent. I have heard this all over the place, all over the media. What they don't mention is a recent Supreme Court decision called Nome versus Vasquez Perdomo, a 6-3 ruling. It said that CBP and ICE can continue their patrols and they can consider somebody's language that they're speaking, their accent, or other nationally related indicators as part of reasonable suspicion. We just reached the conclusion that, of course, obviously, law enforcement is allowed to detain you if there is a reasonable suspicion that you're in violation of the law. We have now just reaffirmed that the Supreme Court has allowed for immigration officers and agents to detain somebody and take into account their language, their accent, or other nationally related indicators as part of that reasonable suspicion. When you add to that the antagonizing, intimidating behavior of everybody on that street and the evasive answers that this guy gave, when a cop pulls you over, you don't get to refuse identification because you feel profiled, okay? You know, there's that old urban legend that red cars get pulled over more often by the police because either they speed more or it's just presumed that they're speeding more because they're red cars. I don't know. I just remember that being a stat when I was getting my driver's license. Don't get a red car, the cops will pull you over more. So let's say you're driving a red car and the police pull you over and they come up to the window and say, show me your ID. You're not allowed to refuse. You're not allowed to say, no, you just pulled me over because I have a red car. It's my accent. And so, no, forget it. That's not how it works. And by the way, here's how these things work, okay? Here's how things work in the real world. For us grown-up Americans, us reasonable, normal American citizens who understand that we have to have law enforcement, we have to have rules in our society, and we have to act like grown-ups. Because we've all been there, man. We've all been pulled over by the police, and we've all had to deal with that dread in the rearview mirror when you see the lights flashing and the slow walk up to your window, and you know you didn't break the light, and you know that he's just being a jerk, and you know that you didn't do anything wrong. It was that other guy. So what do? You roll down the window and you argue with him and you fight with him and you pull out your camera and you start making a video and you start antagonizing him and you refuse to show him the driver's license. Is that how grown-ups handle these things? Is that how members of a civilization and a society of laws handle these things? I guess you could try that. Or how about this? Listen to Uncle Larry for a minute. He's going to help you out. If you're ever in that position, you roll down the window. Police officer asks for your ID, registration, proof of insurance. You hand him your ID, your registration, and your proof of insurance. He says that you violated the law. You think you didn't violate the law. You act politely. You answer his questions. You cooperate. If he gives you a ticket, you take the ticket. And then later, you can challenge the stop. Later, you can file a complaint. Later, you can sue if your rights were violated. But while you're on the roadside with cars whizzing by, you cooperate. That's what grown-ups do. That's what American citizens with respect for the law do. The guy in the video who had to show his papers because of his accent was not arrested. He was not charged. He was released the same day. And everything in that video falls under the governing legal standard going all the way to the Supreme Court. You don't like the laws? Go protest in front of a congressman's house. But don't say that it's the CBP's problem. Don't say it's ICE's problem. That guy in that video that I just played for you that has become this cause celeb, I cannot believe they're asking for papers, he just has an accent. He was detained. And that becomes one of the statistics. This ICE is out of control. Look at all these U.S. citizens that have been detained. That guy should have been detained. He was righteously detained. He was legally detained. And law enforcement do it all the time. And how many U.S. citizens, according to ProPublica, in 2025, how many U.S. citizens have been detained and then released by CBP or ICE? 170. In a nation of over 300 million, with a deportation operation that got rid of 3 million, they detained 170. A little more than 3 per state in this country. And you think ICE is acting irresponsibly? You think ICE has to up their game? You think ICE is their own worst enemy and it's really ICE's fault? Maybe it's the media's fault. Maybe it's the way this is being covered. Maybe it's the politicians who are politicizing and exploiting ICE for their own craven political careers that may be the problem. Because by any measure, 170 out of 3 million who have been deported and out of 300 million in the country is an A-plus World Series winning Super Bowl champion kind of record. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Well, I'm getting yelled at by Mr. Producer. I'm going to out you, Mr. Producer. He's yelling at me. He's complaining. He's whining. He's saying, Ben Ferguson would never do this to me. He's always throwing Ben Ferguson at me. Don't try to get between me and Ferguson. We're buds. We're pals. We're friends. Can't say that about everybody who fills in for Mark Levin. But we're friends, Ben Ferguson and I are. No, Mr. Producer is angry at me because I promised Scott Besson smacking down Maxine Waters. And I got so sidetracked with the news all day and having to blow away this myth that ICE is detaining citizens and it's outrageous and all that. All right, so here's Scott Besson today with Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters made the mistake of trying to ask the Secretary of the Treasury to shut up.
10 and 20 million immigrants
Can you
took
shut
up the
up?
housing stock of working Americans, and can you maintain some level of dignity?
Gentleman's time is expired.
Can you maintain some level of dignity? Answer no. It was glorious, and there was even more. How about this exchange with Representative Sylvia Garcia?
Do you have any idea how much we're spending on ICE every single day for enforcement?
Again, the representative, this is the Financial Stability Oversight Commission.
But you're the treasurer. You're the treasurer. You're supposed to follow the money. In response to questions on this side, you're always talking about, well, we follow the money. Well, have you followed the money? How much are they spending every single day in Minnesota and other states where they occupy cities, terrorize communities, and try to break up our country?
Again, President Trump has secured the border. He was elected
then let him stay at the border.
On a mandate.
Well, I disagree with you, and I think
you disagree that he was elected?
You disagree that he was elected? Oh, it's beautiful. Thanks for listening. Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.